G'day crew, Ross here and welcome to my kitchen. I'm going to show you how I cook salmon today. Now, I cooked salmon plenty of times when I was a chef, was never really a fan. It's a great source of omega-3, it's an oily fish and it's really healthy, but I didn't like it. And I went to a friend's barbecue probably 5-6 years ago now, and at the time I was a pescatarian. I mean, these days I still am, but I will eat a bit of meat occasionally. And a pescatarian is vegetarian plus fish. So he made sure the guy cooking the barbecue had done a piece of salmon for me and I went, ugh. But turns out it was absolutely beautiful. So I got the recipe and today I'm going to show you how to cook it. First thing we're going to need is one piece of salmon. Now this is wild caught Atlantic salmon. This is what I prefer to use. I don't have it often, but when I do, I want good quality food because that's where my health starts, with what I put in my gut. And we are not putting good stuff in our gut. The sustainable salmon, now you do your own research. I don't want to get sued by telling you a lot of things, but the research I've seen indicates about 26% of the fish in those pens die in the pens from collisions with each other because there's just too many fish, and also from sea lice. What do you reckon they do with a dead fish? Now, there was a movie made back in the 1930s. I think it had Charlton Heston in it. It's called Soylent Green. And spoiler alert, if you want to watch an old black and white movie, nearly 100 years old, towards the end of the movie, they find that the dead people were ground up into pellets called Soylent Green and fed to the live people. So think about that when you're having your sustainable fish. Also wonder why it's pink. Now I know why this is pink, because these are fish, they're not people. These little fellas are swimming around the ocean and they're feeding on plankton, which are that colour. Therefore the flesh turns that colour. Fish in pens are fed pellets. So do your own research, but you might want to start looking down the path of food colouring. I'm not a fan. If you have it, look, it's still probably reasonable, but I think this is a better quality. Now, what are you going to need to do this? You're going to need an oven at 180 degrees Celsius, tray, paper, that's fine. One of these, organic lemon off my tree. Now, unfortunately, you can't have an organic lemon off my tree unless you come and knock on my door. I'll probably give you one. But good lemon. You can use the stuff out of the little squeezy bottle, but it does have a bit of preservative in it. Oregano, or as the Americans are fond of saying, oregano. And I'm going to put in a good quality Celtic salt. Now we're going to start off, I happen to have a filleting knife. It's really sharp. I tell you what these are fantastic for. These are the best knives in the universe for cutting tomatoes because they're so skinny. Anyway, they're actually a filleting knife. I'm not going to fillet this. Whether you get skin on or skin off is your choice. It's not going to matter because of the way we cook it. Now, salmon often comes with these little bits of fat either side, and so I want a sharp knife, and I'm simply going to drag that down there, and I want that little bit of fat sort of gone without taking too much of the salmon away. Cut into the edge there. There we go. That'll do. Not terribly clean, but it's good enough. Okay. Now the preparation for this is just do that, and then what I'm looking for, so I'm just going to run my fingers along. Now the guys down where I get this are usually pretty good, but every now and again you find it's got some bones. This piece doesn't. If it did, I would actually take them out with a pair of tweezers. Okay, so that's pretty much all the preparation. Now I'll show you a little trick. This is a piece of baking paper. Rip that off. And it's approximately, oops, let me adjust that angle there. It's approximately the same size as the tray that I'm going to use in the oven. So what you do is we're doing what we call a cartouche, which you can use for putting on top of custard when it's cooked. Fold it in half, and then fold it in half, and then fold it in half, and then fold it in half. And you're just folding it around the one point. I'll do that again. Fold it in half, fold it in half, in half, close enough to in half anyway, and in half again. Now, stick that around about where the middle is, and then, there we go, cut that around about there. I'm going to unfold it. I've got my nice round piece of paper. That just neatens things up. Okay, piece of salmon, straight on there. Get rid of that bit of that oil off that fish. I use a fresh knife. Now the lemon juice, you can just use a hand to catch any seeds. And I'm just going to cover that fish. Lots and lots of lemon juice. I don't care if it spills all over the paper. Ooh, there's quite a bit in there. Okay. Next thing is salt. Now, you can over-season salmon, but it's actually hard. Now this salt, the problem with this salt, salt's osmotic, it absorbs moisture. And that salt has been sitting there quite some time and it's starting to get actually quite moist, but that's okay. So I've got a reasonable amount of salt on there, and as I said, it is hard to over-season salmon. There we go, and I'm just going to put this oregano. I had a big argument with a Canadian chef one day that I was working with down at Glenelg, and he hated the way we said herbs and spices instead of herbs. Oregano, basil, it's quite a strong opinion on these things. Right, there you go, and that's it. That is the preparation for your salmon. Now at this point in time, just wash my hands there, I'm not sealing anything. A lot of people say you want to seal the skin to get crispy skin. If that's your thing, knock yourself out, but it's not going to work here because that lemon juice is going to stop skin getting crispy. We're just going to now take that straight in said oven. 735, I'm going to give that 13 to 14 minutes. Now, while that's cooking, we're going to rustle up something to go with it. So, show a couple little tricks here. So I've got some good quality olive oil in the pan, and you can see that it's starting to get hot because it's moving around quite quickly. All right? And you can actually see heat through it if you're getting close enough. So it's getting warm. It's not hot enough just yet. Into that, I'm going to put some pre-cooked food. Now, these little potatoes, if you put those in and stir them around, they would take forever. So I tend to microwave these. These are little baby potatoes. That's a quarter of one, so they're not real big. I'm going to put that in a minute. I'm going to put mushrooms in first. They could probably go in now, actually. Now, these mushrooms, if you've noticed, I've microwaved them. The thing about mushrooms is, once the water starts coming out of them, they cook fairly quickly. But that point, to get them to that point where the water's coming out, can take quite a long time. So if you give these guys 60 seconds in the microwave, you'll sped up your cooking process by 6 or 7 minutes. So there we go. Now, I'm not going to cook them all the way through and make them nice, crispy and caramel. I could do that, but I'm going to keep it fairly light. All right, now going into that, a big teaspoon of garlic. Now that's probably equivalent of about 2 cloves. Bit of garlic in that. Now put those potatoes in. There we go. I'm not cooking a lot of food, I'm only cooking for myself tonight. So the family's off doing other things. There we go. Now, I do like the pepper. At the end of the day, you season to your taste, and that's the whole thing. I think a nice crushed black pepper, or cracked black pepper, is a good thing. Now, I'm only really trying to get a heat into this because it's mostly been cooked. There we go. And I just want to get the mushrooms a little bit more cooked. Just browned off a little bit. What have we got? I think that's salmon's. That salmon is approaching the point of eating, which is a good thing. Now, I'm putting in some greens here. Now, the greens I've got is one whole bunch of asparagus you get from the supermarket. Now, they're not big bunches, probably 7 or 8 spears, and also half a bunch of broccolini. And again, I pre-cooked those for about 90 seconds. If I had a wok cooker and I could get a lot of heat in the space very quickly, then I'd cook them in the wok cooker. But this thing is electric, it's just a little bit too slow. Now the last thing I'm going to put in is about a dozen mushrooms. Oh, sorry, mushrooms, not funny looking mushrooms, aren't they? Dozen cherry tomatoes, which less than 10 minutes ago were growing right outside there in my veggie garden. They're quite firm, so I like them getting at this stage because they're not quite ripe, and I think they've got a little bit of a tartness to them, or kind of a tartness to them I quite like. Ooh, my dinner's trying to escape. There you go, get back where you belong. All right, always try and clean as I go. Everything gets stacked on the sink so that when I'm finished cooking, I don't have a great big mess. Gone are the days when, as a chef, I would have a kitchen hand cleaning it all up. These days, it's me or the teenager. And frankly, I don't need the nagging. So, I'm not going to cook that out too much because, as I said, I only really want to put some heat into it. I'm not trying to dry it out. You see it's got a coating of oil, but it's not swimming in it. I don't use vegetable oil. And again, do your research on your vegetable oils. It's not the healthiest stuff to use. If you get like a macadamia oil, a rice bran oil, an extra virgin olive oil, or any sort of olive oil, that stuff, not a problem, good quality. The Mediterranean diet is known to be a very good quality diet. I'll turn that off now. Let the sizzling stop. But those vegetable oils that is in everything, you still got to wonder why some of our modern Western diseases turned up not long after they started using that stuff. Anyway, I'll take my tin foil hat off for a second and check salmon. We want it firm to the touch. It's got another minute or two left on it, I suspect. Alrighty, now what I didn't do before was season my veg, so I've now done that. It's got a little bit of Celtic salt in there. I'm not going to use all those veg at once. That will do. That's plenty. Oops, get back in there where you belong. Let's grab that salmon. Now that had a couple of extra minutes, and then a minute just sitting there in the oven, and that is just firm to the touch. That is beautiful. Let that sit there for another minute or two. That is a pretty nice looking, very, very healthy and flavoursome dinner coming right up. Now let's just have a quick look. Look at that. Cooked beautifully. Moist, cooked all the way through, absolutely lovely. Now that is dinner for a king. And given that we are in my castle, that must make me the king. So I'm going to take my nice fresh caught Atlantic salmon with some garlic veg, homebrew pale ale beer, and I'm going to sit down and have myself some dinner. You know what's next? I thank you for your time. Hopefully that was fun. Might have taught you something. And until next time, happy cooking and eating. See ya.